in to another episode of the Q Crew here on the Tell Me More podcast. I'm your host, Mac Moore, and I'm here again with Ethan Hrabe. How's it going, Ethan?
Going better than Johnny Lawrence's face at the All Valley Finals. Am I right?
Yeah. Totally. We are here to talk about Cobra Kai. If Ethan's reference went over your head, you probably tuned into the wrong podcast, because this is going to be exciting. This is a show that I wasn't sure if I was going to watch. I've known about it for a while, but once they put it on Netflix and made it so easy to get to, and once I'd heard enough positive reviews, I was like, I'll give it a shot. I think I'll give it a shot. And watched it all in a day and a half. It did not take any time at all. Ethan, when did you find out about Cobra Kai, and how fast did you knock out that binge watching?
I had heard about it when season 1 was on YouTube, and I had no real drive to go out of my way to find it. And then when it was sitting on the Netflix number 1, number 2 spot for 6 weeks straight, or however long it's been, I figured I'd throw it on. My confession up front, I had not seen The Karate Kid before I jumped into watching Cobra Kai. Yeah. I had always seen bits and pieces on TV. I knew how it ended. I'd seen that last scene, the last All Valley fight scene, but I never sat down and just watched Karate Kid. And it was just kind of like 9 p.m. one night, didn't have to work the next day, burned all the way through season 1 in one sitting, just throwing something new on. And it's what's amazing about it is so, after having watched Karate Kid, it's so true to that universe. It's so just perfectly appropriate for the world that Karate Kid takes place in. And it's so fucking corny, but you can't look away. There's so early on, you might have some resistance of man, this is cheesy, an 80s movie, which again, it's kind of the point. And then it just sucks you in, and that reservation goes away pretty quick.
Yeah, and I think if you look back at 80s movies and you think for every I don't know, for every Pretty in Pink, there is whatever the other one was with Michael J. Fox. There's a dozen movies that went for the same vein and didn't find it. Then you have things whether it's Say Anything, where it's it's that prototype, but it really isn't. And half the people who watched it didn't realize it as it was going on. It's this is a little bit different. Cameron Crowe doesn't make the same movie as John Hughes. And there's that sort of, you can get a lot of different things out of cheesy, and that line. And, I think we as wrestling fans, obviously doing a wrestling podcast, we know that line can be very tough to judge. It's very subjective, but there is something about when it's good cheesy and you enjoy it. And the difference is so thin, but once you hit it, you're you found gold. And to find that in Karate Kid, to do that in a movie that, it had other movies like it in the 80s. There were a lot of other family movies that tried to hit the same vein and failed. There are other Karate Kid movies where I know the joke on Twitter was that actually it's Hilary Swank was in a Karate Kid, and the subtweet, somebody was actually, she's the only Karate Kid, better than the original. And then it starts a war on Twitter. And there's a lot of movies that try it and they don't quite hit it. And that's why I think Cobra Kai is so amazing, because it's rare that you can try to take an idea like this that in theory is great. It was great when Barney Stinson pitched it in How I Met Your Mother, at least when he's telling you why Johnny Lawrence is really the good guy at Karate Kid. And he does it with 6 other movies. But that was the one that sounded like you could turn that into a show. You could pull this off. And
I do want to note that took you about maybe 4 minutes, because I knew that's one of the most popular conspiracies around, not conspiracy, even maybe an opinion or theory around Karate Kid, is that Johnny Lawrence is the good guy, which is completely right up your alley as far as fantasy booking goes.
You got the heel. The heel's the good guy. You guys just missed it. We could do an entire Heroes and Heel series on Karate Kid, on Johnny Lawrence. No, but Barney Stinson did that in How I Met Your Mother, where they talked about it. And that's one of those, when you hear it, it's that's a good joke in a sitcom that also you're that's just a good idea. Somebody should make that. And it took a while, but somebody did. And then you get into the tough thing that we're in with movies right now, where sometimes is it a an extension, or are you doing the flat out remake, which is hit and miss? Like if you turn an old movie into a Netflix series, is it something where if you take the original Karate Kid, can you stretch that out into 10 episodes?
Right.
Maybe you could, maybe you couldn't. Might be good, might not. But if you take what happened later, we're going back, that is the perfect thing to stretch out over a Netflix series. They found a way to, it's not just turning Johnny Lawrence into a good guy. Johnny Lawrence still has some problems. Apparently getting kicked in the face and embarrassed in front of all your friends, and your coach tries to kill you, kind of ruins your life. Kind of hard to recover from that.
Yeah, that's
just a little
fair.
bit. So this is one that you can delve into those characters, and to do it, they kind of hinted when you first show LaRussa in his auto shop, and like for a moment you're like, oh, they're just going to like retell this and completely just either lie or overstate it to turn Johnny Lawrence into the good guy. But no, they found a good line between them. They in wrestling, we talk about it all the time, where do you need both people to be, do you need a face and a heel? Do you need a good guy and a bad guy? In this, they found a way to toe that line where each one kind of moved back and forth. And at different times, you might have thought it was different. Then they did it with the kids. Then for them to do, and the storytelling was brilliant in my mind, the love triangle between the kids that, when I'm first thinking you're doing this series, I'm like, if Johnny Lawrence is going to teach LaRussa's kid and not like hear the last name and figure it out, I was like, that's going to be dumb. Like, how do you pull that off? And in this case, you end up having LaRussa teach Johnny Lawrence's kid, and it's the mother's last name, and that's how he doesn't notice, which still, it's like you kind of – usually you can look at the kid and be like, it kind of looks like the kid I kicked in the face 30 years back. But who knows? Maybe it looks more like the mother.
Yeah, I agree with the way that it ties in is very – you have the two worlds of the high school kids and then the adults. And their history and how they tie in is done in a very like organic way. Like it doesn't seem like cheesy that, one kid of like it's not like LaRusso's kid being trained by Johnny Lawrence. Instead, it's kind of this kind of mystery kid. And then you have the third unrelated kid, Miguel, who's training with Johnny, and that's a star pupil. Yeah, I mean, the way that they shuffle characters around in that universe and that love triangle and how those relationships shift around, even like kind of the more supporting characters like Moon and Hawk and like kind of how their like allegiances and personalities, like all the characters in the show are really well developed. And, like you said, it's like the wrestling argument of, are we past good guys and bad guys, and how it is kind of like, this is the only time 50-50 booking works, honestly. They pull it off really well. And it is like, do we have two like redeemable heels, or do we have two flawed heroes?
And it's not even just that. It's if you can tell the story in a way that there are good guys and bad guys. Going into this show, like the beginning starts, and even with, like I said, where it's kind of hinted and LaRussa's being a little bit of a dick at the beginning, it is set up, and it's still LaRussa's the good guy, and Johnny Lawrence, despite that being the point of view we're getting most of the show from, he's still the bad guy, and he's learning how to not be. But every interaction he keeps having pulls him back in, and that's what's so great about it. Like that, this is karate version of Breaking Bad, like you get to watch him just keep it, and he moves a little bit, and there's a push and a pull that I think really works. Like you said, works with the kids, and that's probably the best balance. That's not to start quoting Miyagi son karate, whatever, but I think that the balance that they find between it, like I said, it gathers the essence of what Karate Kid is as a movie and brings it to the modern day. This is what Fuller House thought it could do and failed miserably. And they pull it off. And while they also have, for the kids, this is closer to what I would call like palatable Disney. Like if you've ever watched the Disney shows, they have a very like, it's bright, great, like quality, like camera work, but with what is usually poorly written interactions between kids who are really, it's like an adult wrote this about what it would be like to be a kid and very plainly didn't actually stop to think how kids interact, Right. And that's what Disney does. And it had that feel, but they actually wrote it well. Like, this is about as good as you can do, having, 15-year-olds running around. And the only unrealistic thing, really, in my mind, is that all these kids become masters at karate in a summer and start putting on daredevil level fight scenes. Like, that, but it was awesome. Like, I loved them doing that. Like, so
Yeah.
there are like 4 genres happening in this show all at once. And I could see where somebody tries to come in and say that it doesn't work, but also fuck them. It totally worked. I loved it. Start to finish, 100 miles per hour. And they didn't even go too soft. Like I said, to gather that essence and still have Johnny Lawrence like drunk driving and like pissing on cars and beating up children, to have that level of just like, it's funny because this is supposed to be family Karate Kid, but also Johnny Lawrence is a fuck up, and we're putting that into the show. And I loved every second of it. Like, I couldn't believe they pulled it off in a way that didn't make me think, well, this is just like a mishmash of, they're throwing spaghetti against the wall and see if it sticks. No, they found a way to take a lot of things, blend it well together. This is a stew. This is a great stew. I don't even need that much stew. But whatever people say when they say that, when they want a good stew, that's what this show was. And I love it. It was so well done.
Yeah, I agree. I think everything about the show just complements every other aspect of the show, and the all of the nods back to the original trilogy seem very natural. Like, there's not a lot of like forced like, or overly obvious like pointing directly at like, oh, remember that part in Karate Kid. There are points where they do show like flashback synced up with whatever is happening, but it also is helpful for maybe people who don't remember Karate Kid as well, or don't remember especially the sequels. Like, maybe they really watched the first one a bunch of times and never watched the second or third one. So it is helpful. And like I said, it seems very natural. And the way that they get, certain actors to reprise their roles in this also just kind of helps create that tie to that universe. Like, even when all the old Cobra Kai boys go like full wild hogs and Tommy fucking dies, like, spoiler alert, but I mean, they took a dude with like stage 4 cancer out on a road trip. I don't know what you thought was going to happen. Like, and I don't know. I mean, but it's and how it not just ties back as being a reference to the previous films, but also helps drive the story forward at all times.
Yeah, and I think that the only thing that I kind of think stood out a little bit was the old Cobra Kai. I forget, it's John something is the guy that nearly kills Johnny Lawrence, and then
Kreese.
Yeah, John Kreese. So having him come back, and I loved it. Like, I was excited for it. And I think that was maybe the weakest part of the show, was his like version of this sad backstory that you thought they were also going to build up. But as soon as like they got past that, like one episode later, they're back to 2-dimensional bad guy in a way that only I guess it works. I think, there's just a moment at the end when they all just decide, we're going to go with this guy who for 10 minutes taught us to keep being assholes. Let's trust that guy over the guy who got us started in this in the first place. I just didn't quite buy it. I thought that was probably the weakest part in terms of like, I wanted it. I wanted it to be good. It just didn't do it for me. Didn't quite hold up.
Yeah. I mean, I think it landed enough for it to make sense moving forward, as far as like all of the students that defected, to follow Kreese because they're upset about Miguel, and there could have been more to it than that, like you said, and of it being more than just like, oh, there's that one scene in the halfway house where you still don't really feel bad for the guy because like John Kreese is to his core like a piece of shit. But yeah, it makes enough sense at the end of season 2 to move forward, and I think that they can build off of that. And it is all like you look in the room of who's training with him at the end. It's not the entire Cobra Kai squad. It's like the select like asshole characters that stand out as asshole characters kind of throughout season 2.
Yeah.
As well as Stingray, who I think is just a delight. But
Man, and that was another piece that I don't know if it reminds me more of the Disney type thing where there's always one really funny adult that you're like, I don't know how he got stuck in this role, but he's killing it. Also, I feel bad that he's stuck in that role, you know?
so
Like for the actor. Like I'm sad he has to be here and not in a grown-up production.
I think that this is a grown-up production. I think it just is a grown-up production that also stars young actors. I mean,
But not for Stingray. He's specifically with the kids, you know?
well, right.
Like,
But
he's like on iCarly. Like, he's whoever that adult is. And you're like, that guy's actually pretty funny. He could be in a real show someday. And then I guess he never did.
I mean, I think that is. It's more the character than I don't know. Maybe it is the structure of the character is based in that kind of way that he is just kind of like a dude who never really like mentally or emotionally progressed past the age of like 19, probably. So in whatever capacity, he's like the cousin Oliver of this show, just that perfect little injection, kind of late and well, he's actually there most of season 2. Now I think about it,
Yeah.
but he as he becomes Stingray towards the end, and he flips the script and shows up, and I love how he's playing Edward 40 Hands at the party, but it's never actually addressed. It's just kind of
He does it on his
there.
own. Yeah.
Right. It's perfect. And yeah, just his entire demeanor is great. He's like, this is a class for like teenagers. He's like, oh, I'm not afraid. I can take them. It's like, okay, that's a pretty great character. And the actor's name is slipping my mind right now, the comedian, but he's very funny. So
yeah, I have not looked it up, but if he's in anything, like if I see his face, that's an instant click. Like I'm immediately going to go and watch and see what's happening. I loved when he tried to get the job at the school just as the fight's breaking out. And then he's like, don't worry, I got this. And he only starts beating up the opposing side. He just starts kicking
beating
the
up
shit out of
Miyagi-Do kids. And when the moment where he high-fives Hawk, I had to pause it because I was laughing so fucking hard, and I rewound it and watched it like 4 times over. Just that moment where him and Hawk are just like, yeah.
It was a good time.
Which, while I'm thinking about it, while we're kind of moving this direction, I think other than Johnny Lawrence, I think Hawk might be the best character on this show. I think he's up there as far as character depth, character motivation. I think the actor who plays him does a really good job too. Like whether he's playing Eli Moskowitz or playing Hawk and playing different versions where you kind of see both sides. Like that kid nails it. I think he's one of the, like I said, he's one of the best characters in the show. And his storyline, I'm hoping, is like a really big feature in season 3.
I assume he's like the new head honcho.
New Johnny Lawrence, yeah, basically.
So he steps in because Miguel is deciding to change his ways. He probably goes to, Miyagi-Do and
if he can fucking walk, or we get a whole Drake and Degrassi situation.
Do you think they'll do that?
I don't know. I really hope not, but I don't know. Probably not.
I feel like midway through the season, maybe he's in a wheelchair for a while, but some balance he finds at Miyagi-Do. Like at first he's just like the mascot, and then eventually gets to walk again.
Karate brings him back and helps him physically recover. Yeah, I don't know.
So do you feel like they were just messing with us, or do you think Elizabeth Shue's actually going to show up for season 3?
I bet she's there. I'd be really surprised if she's not. Considering Elizabeth Shue portrays like one of my favorite characters ever, which is Elizabeth Shue in oh god, the name of the fucking Rock Me Sexy Jesus. What is the name of that movie?
What are you talking about?
Damn it. But it's the one where Steve Coogan opens he's like a drama teacher and creates his own play.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
Are you not helping me here on purpose?
I mean, I don't. It's not on top of my tongue. My head's not coming up with it either. I do know what you're talking about, but I just love that you're just like, that's Elizabeth Shue. She is herself in that movie.
and the fact that she would take that role, I think shows that she would be down for something like Cobra Kai season 3.
Oh, I think she would anyway. She was also the big thing she's doing right now. She was in The Boys, which her once again spoiler. her character is killed off in the first season, but there's still room for the actress to make appearances in season 2. But I think based on they're only like 4 episodes in, they're doing weekly releases, which we'll talk about that at some point. It's interesting move.
Yeah.
But I think they've gotten to the point where she might not be needed for that. So there's a good chance she's used less seldom for season 3 and on for the boys if they keep doing more seasons. So she has time, and I assume that's what it was. Schedule's finally lined up. They are able to bring her in for season 3, and also just perfect timing. And also interesting because the way it ends, it's like this is a message from her character to Johnny Lawrence, but we also don't know yet whether she also sent that friend request to LaRusso. So we got some interesting stuff. They do great cliffhangers. Both seasons ended on really solid cliffhangers. I didn't know how I'd feel about paralyzing a kid, but it was still strong. Like,
God, you sound like Vince McMahon right now.
Well,
I didn't know how I feel about paralyzing a child, but
so like
I stand by it.
The strangest thing is they have that whole fight, and
by the way, awesome fucking fight choreography. That whole scene is awesome.
I'm telling you, I still haven't looked this up. I assume they just stole half the people from Daredevil after they canceled on Netflix. Every scene is a 16-year-old just doing the same break your fucking bones. I don't know how Miguel was the only one who got seriously injured because they were murdering each other through that school. Like, the girls are like pulling each other by the hair, ripping them down staircases.
Yeah.
And then like one response from what's the Johnny Lawrence's kid's name? I
Sam.
So he kicks Miguel and like
Robbie, yeah.
Robbie's like does it, and both girls are like, Robbie, what'd you do? And it's like, are you kidding? Did you see what the rest of you kids did in that school?
Yeah. It's 15 minutes of like 24 children trying to murder each other. Oh, this is over the line. Like, you like the Tori fucking stabs Sam with the bracelet thing, and then you see her. That was one of my biggest things. My biggest beef is like in the end when he goes into Cobra Kai and he's got all the defectors. I'm like, shouldn't she be in fucking juvie right now? Like, what the fuck? How did the police not like apprehend her for like slicing a girl open with a blade and sending her to the hospital? She just got out of that. I don't know.
You could say it was accidental because wasn't it the spikes on the like wristband? Like it looks like a hairnet and it flips the other way and it's freaking brass knucks with points on the end.
I don't think you're gonna get away with saying that's an accident when she wraps it around her fist.
Hey, I don't know where the cameras were. A lot of kids were crowded up. This is like when I used to be a bouncer at a bar and like basically like I'd like lift my shoulders up because I knew where the cameras were. Because one of our head bouncer got fish hooked, and he was like, not today. And there are just forearms that the camera did not catch. I assume that's what happened at that school, and they don't know what really happened. But if she just says, that was just my hairnet that, happens to have sharp objects on the back end and happened to go into her forearm. So I don't know what to tell you.
Sure. Okay. That's a very Mac way of explaining out of that situation, but all right.
I mean, they're Cobra Kai. They strike first and they lie first. I think that's the second part.
I think that's the new Cobra Kai, yeah. I also don't know how only 2 kids ended up in the hospital.
Yeah, it was I think Stingray probably put 3 kids in. Like,
yeah, alone. He had to have. And then Hawk goes through the fucking like trophy case.
Yeah.
Like, definitely gonna have some stitches that probably needed after that, but
maybe it did seem like the glass broke in a way that maybe it was just part of stunt coordination, but didn't seem like he really got the worst of that other than the impact of hitting it and falling to the ground. So maybe not stitches, but the rest of the impact. There's some internal bleeding happening with these kids. There are some freshmen who are not going to graduate, not from just failing classes, but I mean, they're probably going to fail classes because they can't attend.
Well, yeah.
They're not going to be able to make it to class.
Both dojos are like, kids are like completely expelled. Where the fuck are these parents? Like, this has got to be a situation where like, Miguel's mom can't be the only like karate mom who's like, I need my kid to stop fucking around with karate because they're going to end up in jail or fucking die before they make it to college.
I don't know. What did we learn about the karate moms? Like that's their new personality now. That's who they
Yeah.
are, and they can't give that up.
It's karate first, I guess.
So that was the scene where it was definitely over the top, but this goes back to that, like, it's a little subjective, but I'm willing to say it was good. Like, it was ridiculous, and I loved it. Like, I loved how bullshit those scenes were.
Oh yeah. Really any of the, fights that actually occur are like really well choreographed, really well done. Through both seasons. That's just like kind of the finale. Like, I mean, that was a great finale. And then, they kind of tease it at the party before, which that was kind of the only thing that I thought was like really dumb, is like the balance on the stool game. Like that it kind of that's kind of took me out of it. Like, that suspension of disbelief and being immersed in this world. That was one of the scenes I was like, everyone I know who's ever taken karate was like fucking lame. Like, this wouldn't be happening. All these all these karate kids all gathered around at a, $1 billion home, and I don't know, maybe it would. That's a rare scenario that I don't have an explanation for.
Elite karate kids who are winners, and
it's
winners are not going to be home sober. So
it's true.
Kind of had to be out there. Yeah, I was trying to think of other characters. So you got LaRusso's wife, I think, is a important
constant voice of reason. Yeah,
and she was one that I think maybe in the first season just sort of was there and had a role, but didn't matter too much. And then I think she kind of like established herself in season 2 as being a important force for where this was going. Maybe part of it was just that she's now sitting there having to deal with her husband who's going to ruin their business. And it's like, I get what you're trying to do, but also you're probably not going to accomplish it because it doesn't really make sense. And you're ruining everything we've built.
Yeah, like the whole dinner scene cracks me up. Like the one where they eventually kind of become buddies for like a minute, and where they're talking about like their class size, and she's like, "Oh, okay, so this is happening. Great." Like, like the waitress is like, "Do you two know each other?" She's like, "Oh, they have warring karate dojos." Yeah, how she's just like over their bullshit, and kind of makes them get through their bullshit. She ends up being a very, very solid character. Like I said, like the voice of reason, which, like, if you look back at Karate Kid, Daniel LaRusso needs that voice of reason. Otherwise, he's like a hothead, New Jersey dickhead. Like, and he had Mr. Miyagi. Closest thing he has Mr. Miyagi in his like modern day life is his wife, as far as somebody who can, provide insight and like perspective when he needs it. Because like that is kind of one of the things with the whole going back to, is Daniel LaRusso actually the good guy? It's like he's kind of a hothead. He's kind of a dick. Like that's just, part of his character makeup. So he has to have a balance there. Which again, everything in Karate Kid is about balance.
That's true. The other thing I think she does is not just being kind of the voice of reason with not having Mr. Miyagi there. It's she is the correction to what is too much to deal with. Karate Kid is it's too serious about a not serious topic. Sort of like you mentioned earlier, where the kids are too cool to be karate type kids. You're right. Like, okay, there are certain parts about this, particularly even when you go back to watch Karate Kid, where you're being too serious about the like learning from these chores, and there's just it works in Karate Kid, but barely, and only because not because of Mr. Miyagi's reasonableness. It's because that actor is phenomenal and does so great in the role. He makes what otherwise would be a bad movie work. And in this way, you don't have him. You don't really have a lot of top-notch, the type of like Broadway actors that can really sell these performances. You have guys that, they were kid actors that, Ralph Macchio and whoever plays Johnny Lawrence, because I still haven't figured out his name.
William Zabka. I think William Zabka is actually a really good actor in this show. I think he is.
He nails it.
Every bit down for this character.
He's also not like he doesn't have a lot of range, because that's never what he's become. Like he hasn't even done enough movies to kind of add to his skill set. but you put people in the right way to make sure that when they seem a little too corny, you pull it back. And that's what she did a lot was, when she's pointing out, like, they have 2 warring dojos. And, like, there's just a lot of times where she kind of steps in and kind of gives that, like, okay, I'm not going to make fun of you for doing karate, but also don't pretend like this is the most serious thing in the world, because it's just not. And there are other moments that work for that too, when they bring in the kids that are trying to, like, it's free lessons, and, like, he explains what they're going to do. Like, you just want people to paint your car, like, and I think that was a joke that everybody knew would be there. But then I think it was like the next 3 lines from that kid, like, he delivered perfectly. Like, if I was doing a Dion Waiters award, it's those 2 kids coming in and just being like, screw this, we're going to the place with the snake, or whatever they announced.
Yeah, go to the place with the snake, yeah.
Like, that they need those moments in the show, because if not, you do start to kind of slide into Fuller House territory, and you don't want it. If you're not self-aware of the quality and the impact of your show, and you're taking yourself just too seriously when this is about adults who can't give up their karate infatuation, and now they're getting a bunch of other kids to give up their lives for this ridiculousness. Like, the show would have been too much, but they did. They once again, they found that balance. They brought it all together, and now I'm sitting there and I don't know what to do until there's a season 3. Like, I am now sad. Yeah. What do I do with my life, Ethan?
Go back and watch Cobra Kai again, or go back and watch the original trilogy of Karate Kid.
Yeah, I'm gonna watch the first one. I'm out after that. Sorry, I'm not doing it.
Second one's not bad. Don't watch the third one. Yeah, no. Second one's worth a watch.
Don't watch the remake, because that's that same thing where you're like, okay, you have the pieces, but that doesn't mean it's gonna work. Like, okay, if you're gonna do it and you want some star power, I guess we're gonna get Will Smith's kid and we're gonna get Jackie Chan. That just seems like fantasy booking. And it's like, yeah, but it just doesn't work that way. It
should work.
But it just didn't. And it's not even bad. It's just not good. Like, that's the guy. And that's where you run into that same problem of getting the idea of, Cobra Kai sounds on paper like a brilliant plan, but it's not always going to work. And that's why I'm that impressed with how much they made it work, and how much. And if somebody was to say it was negative, fine. Like, okay, there's just too much going on here. It's too cheesy. It's this and that. But I thought the blend was great. And it's one of those things, like, saying in retrospect, well, yeah, that's an obvious idea. Like, you should do that. It fails so often that you got to give props when they pull it off. And they pulled this one off. I don't know how many seasons I think this could have, but definitely going into season 3, I'm still psyched. I still want to watch what they're bringing to the table. Like you said, with, having the Cobra Kai go in that direction. I don't think the execution was well done, but I'm still okay with the story and the direction. Like, I want to see them go head to head. And that's probably the best role for Kreese, is like, he needs to actually be in control, in takeover. And the moments where they tried to kind of humanize him, he just didn't bring it. Like, it didn't quite work.
He's too evil.
Now he's in the right
too
spot.
Evil.
Let him jump ahead in the story, and now we're back to where he needs to be. So I'm excited for that. I'm trying to think if there's anything else for Cobra Kai we need to hit before we finish up. I don't want this.
You can make a fun drinking game out of Cobra Kai. Go back and take a drink every time Dimitri gets hit in the stomach. It is hilarious how often he gets kicked in the stomach. Just his training. That's another character that, like, eventually it takes a while to kind of come around to, but, like, that is one that there's, like, a borderline between the cheesiness and the self-awareness of the show, which is exactly, like, the right balance of the show. Is it's cheesy and self-aware, but also, I don't know, like you said, you can't look away.
And see, Dimitri might be the perfect one to sort of explain that, like, where that line is. Because when he's, like, doing his lines, when he's first talking with Miguel, the lines are bad. But I want them to be bad. This is a 15-year-old kid who isn't popular, that's trying to be snarky, and stop getting people and handing them things Ryan Reynolds would say. Because that's bullshit. Like, that kid, if he could say that, I know a kid who looks just like him, has the same demeanor, and when he's actually funny, that kid was popular in high school. Like,
Yeah.
there's not this dividing line between like attractive kids and unattractive kids or whatever they think it is. Like, literally, that kid, if he could pull off the one-liners, then guess what? He'd probably be with the cool kids. That's how
Yeah.
it ends up working out. But having him not be cool, like he's trying to say witty things and they fall flat, that's good. That's what should happen. So where somebody might take that as a negative, like, well, those are poorly written lines. Like, yeah, kids should have poorly written lines, because have you ever talked with a kid? Do you remember what you were talking about when you were 15? Like, you sounded like an idiot. Like, we're all like in our 30s right now. We still, most of the time, and I do podcasts, there's evidence, I sound like an idiot. Like, and I've gotten immensely better. I've improved a lot. Like,
Yeah.
Put 15-year-old me out there, no shot. Like,
Nope.
There's just gonna be
Not
some
happening.
dumb things I'm saying. So I appreciate that. I think there's realness there that I think that is one of the hardest things to do in movies, because you're showing the perfect moments.
Mhm.
And when you're trying to be real, particularly with kids of this age, it's hard to do without it just seeming like you're bad filmmakers. And I think it goes back to when you're talking about the use of the clips from the first movie. I think in a remake, that doesn't work, or like a reboot. Like if you did
Right.
this series and just did a movie today about Johnny Lawrence adulthood, and you did the clips, it would take up too much of the movie. It would be a cheat.
Yeah.
But in a series where you're getting to spread it out over some time, I think it works better. And same thing, like if you did a movie, you might need to make those lines crisper for the kid. When you're watching Dimitri develop, he gets to be lame at the beginning. He's still pretty much lame at the end, but better. Like, he's in,
Mhm.
you know. And
Well, yeah, I mean, like cuts a total
into-
promo at
Yeah.
that party. Like, oh, okay, like people start to accept him too, because he's like funny and also being kind of a dick. So
Yeah. And so they to do that in a series makes it where you can pull those things off better. And I think it worked. That's my opinion. I think it did so much in a way that I wanted it to be good. This wasn't a show that I threw on to like want to hate, but this without a doubt did way better than what I thought. There's low bar when it's like, this is a really good YouTube show. It's like, well, what does that mean? You know,
Yeah.
We talked about this when we did Letterkenny. It's like the first time you're told, it's like, this is a really good show on Crackle, you know, and you're like, well, what does that mean? It's like, well, now it's a really good show on Hulu. Like, I'll give it a shot. I'll do that. That sounds like something I'm willing to risk. But like, I think with the TV show, like you can clear that bar in a way that like it's not this one-off movie that having kids take up 90% of it. I would have just been pissed off like every time Johnny Lawrence wasn't on the screen. Like, if it's an hour and a half movie and you're like, why are you giving me these kids? Get them out. Dunzo. But in a TV show, it worked. It was good balance. Like I said, it took the best of the genres it tried to pull from. Like I said, I'm not gonna watch a Disney show all the time, but they took the right elements, added it to this show, and every time they got a little too cheesy and bullshit, Johnny Lawrence destroyed something and got shit faced.
Yeah, gets hammered. That's what saves the show
every time. So yeah, I think in terms of stuff we talk about, is there anything either about this show, or we can just jump into the kind of the general as we finished up the last few minutes of this? Was there anything Netflix wise that I was talking about the boys earlier with their like once a week releases? Do you think Cobra Kai should do something similar for season 3?
I don't know. It would help me, ration out how much Cobra Kai I'm taking in, because if they release the whole season, I'm just going to sit down and watch the whole season. So I do kind of like the week to week suspense of that excitement of like, oh, it's it's Thursday, I get to watch this show. Like, that is something that kind of over time I think is just gradually being phased out, and so I'm not opposed to the gradual releases, but it is kind of cool when you can just jump in and binge an entire show right away.
Yeah, I think with the way I've jumped in for the boys, I didn't realize they were doing that till I watched the 3 episodes they threw on there. So I was like, knocked him out, and there's like, there's no more. What
if you're planning to binge it, yeah, that would suck. But if you know it going into it, then it's probably better for you.
Yeah, and I still think like they need something better. You can't release it at midnight, I guess, is the only thing I have. Like, don't make me like, if I think the boys is Friday morning. So like I wake up, I throw it on, but like at the same time, there is something in me that at Thursday at like 11:30, I'm like, do I want to ruin my Friday by staying up
Right.
to try to watch this?
Stay up until 4 a.m.
And then it like, yeah, you're like, oh, it's gonna be on at midnight. No, it's a different time zone. And it's like, okay, 2. No, like it's not even whatever. It's not even like midnight, on the East Coast or midnight on the West Coast. It is random ass time that they're like, if you want it, you want it. Only the crackheads will see it because we're putting it on at 3:46. Deal with it, assholes. And I think that could be fixed. With my idea that I've already pitched a bunch of times, which is make channels. Like there are other apps that are kind of doing it, but those are ones with nothing good on. Like I think streaming platforms need to make 4 channels, run it like it's HBO, and be like, here's Netflix Family, here's Netflix something else. And what you do is any show like that, like if you want to have a Game of Thrones type phenomenon, you need to have shows that you're like, we're releasing this at 7:00 Friday night, and once it's up, once you came in for the season premiere, it's on there. Go watch. But we want everybody, at least for that first episode, to watch together. Yeah. I think that makes more sense with their format, and at least and I don't know how much that matters to them. Is it only worth it if you're getting a full season, you're getting 12 episodes of people tuning in, right, tweeting about it, yada, yada. Or could you at least give that sort of like grand premiere type feeling? And I think that's the only thing that Netflix and Hulu and all these streaming platforms have never pulled off. And they haven't even seemed to have tried. Like they've not made that idea, more so than like, I guess Disney's done it a little bit, but only to their own detriment. Because it's like, we'll have Hamilton at this time. That's when Disney Plus will crash. Like that's the time. Yeah. And so maybe it's not a good idea to do that. But who knows? Maybe that's why all the other ones were smart and avoided it, because they didn't want the Hamilton problem. But I right now I knocked out Umbrella Academy, which I guess we'll put off to another time. Nat wasn't able to jump in on this one, and we'll probably down the line try to knock that out, because that's one that I wasn't sure if I was going to watch. I didn't know much about it. I threw on the first episode, and same binge mode that I went into, just
right on.
Knocked it all out, and then I'm back to like, what do I watch now? And it really is Boys every Friday morning. And is there what should I be watching, Ethan? Give me the recommendation. Give me the direction I need to go heading into the next Q Crew.
See, I'm not the right person to ask. I generally find a show I like and I watch it like 2 or 3 times through before I switch over to something else. I really don't know. I've kind of thought about diving back into Shameless. I kept up with that up through like season 6, and then I just kind of dropped off. I went like a year without internet and without Wi-Fi, so I just didn't stream anything. Never jumped back into that. And as far as like anything on HBO, I mean, nothing's really coming out regularly enough to watch. And then, I mean, Showtime, just don't use the Showtime app. The Showtime app is terrible.
We need to do a whole episode where we just run down which apps are good and which ones are bad. You just threw Showtime under the bus. I will throw the TNT app under the bus.
Yeah, that's fair. The Showtime Anytime app is, it's like if like HBO Max and Crackle had a baby and Crackle got custody. Like it is just a mess. It just has no direction. It crashes very randomly. If you try to rewind a movie, it'll just back out to the main screen. It's a nightmare.
Since you just mentioned you're rewatching, the other app I will throw under the bus is Hulu. It is the worst one for rewatching the same sitcom, because for some reason, so we'll watch episodes, and this is I'll break it down for everybody. There are certain shows that I watch with Kinsey. I watch way more shows than she does. So they're the ones I feel like when we're in the same room, these are our shows. These are The Office. These are we'll throw on Frasier. We'll throw on sometimes it's Parks and Rec. We kind of have just kind of this routine that it's like once I kind of get bored of going through and watching, and bored meaning 4 times through The Office. I'm like, I guess I'll throw on something different. So we'll do that. And right now it's How I Met Your Mother. That's the one we threw back on. And I don't know how much is because I needed that Cobra Kai connection with the Barney Stinson, having Johnny Lawrence as his idol. But like, watching through that, whenever we go through and finish an episode, one of us is going to fall asleep early, and somebody else is going to watch a couple episodes, and then that person will fall asleep, and it'll run through however many episodes until it dies, right? And so when we come back to watch, we're like, okay, what episode are we on? And we usually split in the middle. Like, well, I kind of remember this one, but I fell asleep. Oh, I watched this and I don't really want to rewatch it again. But we've seen the shows enough that we're like, we'll jump ahead. Whichever one we fucking jump on, just pick one, play it. We're good. Problem is, because it played ahead and Hulu stops like 30 seconds before the end, it jumps to the end of the episode every time. And I don't know how in the world that could be on your app for more than a day before you fixed it, because that is the worst. That's the only reason you have these shows. And if Netflix is going to get rid of The Office, they're going to get rid of all these things, and Hulu's going to jump in and be the ones that have your classics that people just watch day and night, they're just on in the background. You can't do that and have that flaw in your app. Fix it, Hulu. Fix it. That's all. That's PSA. It's the only reason I did the podcast, was to yell at Hulu.
Yeah, I'm on board with that.
Bunch of assholes.
I've had the same issue. It's very annoying. I wasn't ready to bring the thunder the way you were.
Thunder. I'm very upset. It's
I know.
ruining my life. Like, all the times that I'm like, because I just want to casually watch it, and that you can't. Like, I literally have to like be on guard and be like, oh, it's gonna start the new episode. Now I need to grab the remote and back it up. And Hulu has the worst rewind. So all of the app sucks, because I'm sitting there, I got to hold the button down, and I'm just waiting 10 minutes. Like, you don't have a go straight to the back. You don't have like Netflix where it's like ×5, ×10, ×6. Like, it's like, nope. One slow ass speed, you might get to the beginning of the show sometime this.
I think you can back out to the show like main page and be like, restart episode, but it won't fix any of the future episodes.
So I don't know what app or what device you're using. So we have Fire Stick. There's not a start from the beginning. So Netflix has that. Hulu on Fire Stick does not. It's awful. I can't even understand why it's so bad.
HBO Max might be the most solid app.
That's what I heard, but it was from Bill Simmons, who's hawking it on the podcast he does. So I couldn't believe him. But that was, I mean, it sounds right. It sounds like HBO would be the one smart enough to put more time into it.
Yeah, so, HBO Max is solid.
Yeah, we could probably do an entire hour on apps, but we won't. We will just keep it to one good rant from me, and then we're out the door. You didn't have any other shows to throw on, because it's probably just going to be wrestling. And I know for me, it's probably just How I Met Your Mother, Friday Night Lights, and actual Friday Night Lights / other football that I'm going to be watching for the foreseeable future. So anybody, if you're listening, this will be the first time we try to have engagement with our 12 followers. Jump onto YouTube, jump onto SoundCloud, jump onto our Facebook, Tell Me More podcast page, and tell me what to watch. Tell me what's going on, what's in your queue, what's on your watch list. And I probably won't watch it because I don't have time, but I'll think about it, and it could help me. Might tell me where to go. I was thinking of
Taxi. Sorry, I just recently started watching Taxi.
Is that on HBO Max?
I think it was on Hulu.
Really?
Yeah.
I need some Danny DeVito in my life.
Yeah, I never really watched Taxi like I'd watched random episodes here and there, but it was it's a fun watch. It's a good show. Surprisingly progressive at times.
Yeah.
It's a good time.
I might have to give that a shot. I didn't realize it was on a service I actually had. So there we go. If you go long enough, if you let me ramble, Ethan will think of something he's been watching, and he pulls it up. So,
it's a show from the 70s, but I finally figured one out.
Take a bit. What are you guys watching? I don't know if it's on the top of the Netflix list, but I have a few. Okay, have you heard of Cheers? It's really good. Check it out. So that's it. Those are our recommendations. That's all we have for this episode of the Q Crew. Like I said, we should be back at some point for talk about Umbrella Academy, because I really did enjoy it. It was a good time. And then I think it might be in the next week or so bringing on a few guests. Definitely going to be Wade. Pretty sure Brandon's going to be there since we had to cancel for both of them from this week. But we're going to break down Batman. We're gonna have a list. Best Batman, best Bruce Wayne, and best Batman. And these are different categories. We're going to rank them. We're going to rank them in the movies and in TV shows, and we're going to figure this all out. And it's going to be very nerdy. It's going to be loud and obnoxious. It's the best of the Tell Me More podcast. It's the best of the Q Crew. That's what we have in store. So everybody, thanks for tuning in for this one on Cobra Kai. That's all we have for this episode of the Q Crew. Later, folks.